I'm doing another Expanse video because this sci-fi show just gives a really thought-provoking look into what our own near-term future might look like. The story is set around 300 years from now, and here we've colonized the solar system, but we've also become fractioned. On the one hand, we have the Republic of Mars, population of 9 billion people, give or take, and once a colony of Earth, but now an independent superpower. And then a bit closer to the sun, we have our Earth, the second superpower. And here, we have a population of over 30 billion people. And that's a bit of a problem. Technology has gotten so good that AI and automation, well, they've made work kind of a privilege, actually. Just like we often worry about in our world too, right? There's just too many people and too few jobs. And so you might be thinking, how does everyone get by then? Well, that's what Sergeant Bobby Draper wonders about too. It's actually a bit of a mystery to her, but she's about to find out. You see, Bobby is new here. She's a Marine, but she's from Mars, and she just arrived on Earth. And for the first time in her life, she's about to walk out onto the streets of New York City and find out how people live in a society without working. Back on Mars, Bobby grew up hearing a lot of stories about Earth. Stories that Earthers would probably call propaganda. You know, on Mars, everyone is part of a massive, generations-long terraforming project. Everyone contributes, everyone has a role, and everyone working together is kind of their whole thing. It's part of their identity. So, when Martians look at Earth, at a glance, all they see is a place where people just refuse to contribute. They see them as lazy, slow, selfish, and, all those nice adjectives. So Bobby's basically heard back from when she was a kid that Earthers are not like Martians. Martians work hard, Earthers don't. But of course, that's not quite the truth. It's actually more like, well, just good old nationalism. And it's something plenty of historians have written about in our world too. This thing going on back on Mars that Bobby grew up with, well, it's probably also the greatest strength that we have as a species. Okay, what I mean is, think about what's gotten us to the top of the food chain, right? Like as a species, and that eventually led us to develop our crazy modern societies. Right off the bat, you might be thinking like, certain tools or technologies have done this, right? And yeah, those are really important for sure, but really, I think our greatest strength as a civilized species is our ability to tell stories. Because stories literally make it possible for us to cooperate at large scales, at the scale of a country, for example. And it's the same thing in The Expanse. Without stories, like stories that give meaning to a piece of paper like this, well, how would we be able to, create a national economy, let alone a global economy, if no one believes in this thing altogether? Our economic system would collapse. This is Canadian money, by the way. We all collectively believe the story of money, even though it's just a piece of paper or, a number on a screen, right? And the idea of the nation is the same thing, basically. On Mars, it really only works because they're so far away from Earth, united by, well, not a border, but a planet, I guess, and by a story. But as much as stories have led us to where we are, I think there's something quite sinister about them as well. To Bobby, Earth is a fiction, a cautionary tale about a failed society that proves Martians are doing things right and that Earth isn't. This story is probably meant to unite Martians towards a common goal, but quite inevitably in doing so, that also means that Earthers have been weaved into their narrative as the example of what happens if you don't follow the Martian goal. But of course, in real life, things are always more complicated. And Bobby's about to find out exactly why. Now, when Bobby arrives on Earth, she's actually already developed a healthy habit to question things. You see, she had a bit of an incident recently. Like I said, her vocation is being a Marine.
6 Marines.
A Martian Marine.
About 2.3 clicks out on foot, closing fast. They appear to be charging us.
But unfortunately, she was on the job, in the wrong place, at the wrong time.
Come again, Stick. The comms are being jammed from the surface. God damn it, I need a surface visual now!
And here she actually survived something that she really wasn't supposed to survive. This thing here, well, it killed her entire team, including her friend Travis, who was born on Earth and later immigrated to Mars, but somehow she survived. But she was the only one from her team. The important thing is that this all happened on common ground. It happened on one of Jupiter's moons on a station called Ganymede, and here both Earthers and Martians grow food. Both superpowers, they have a military presence here. And so when this thing attacked, it started a conflict between Earth and Mars. And Earth didn't really see what was going on except that Mars was shooting at Earth troopers. Only Bobby saw this alien thing, and now Earth wants answers about what the hell happened. That's why she gets flown to Earth. Usually, a common Marine like herself wouldn't have that privilege. And well, maybe unsurprisingly, the Martian delegation doesn't want her to talk about that alien thing she saw. No, instead, when peace talks between Mars and the United Nations, which is the future government of Earth, by the way, when they begin, Bobby's actually taken aback because she realizes that the Martian delegation pretty much just brought her as a showpiece more than anything else. They don't want her to account for what actually happened back on Ganymede Station. Instead, they want her to make up a story. In a way, I think this is the moment in the show when she really starts to question her own identity as well. If her superiors are able to just craft a narrative like this about something as important as an alien attack, well, what about the one and only story she's grown up with? The story that's made her work her ass off for her entire life to become an elite Marine. Could it be that Earth isn't what she's been told either? Well, luckily there's one person in the room who's, uncommonly direct for a politician. And she knows exactly what questions to ask and how to get the truth out of Bobby.
Did you know that the majority of people on Earth don't have jobs? They don't work at all. They live on basic assistance, which the government provides.
I did know that.
You call them takers, I believe.
This is UN Undersecretary Christian Avasarala.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not that they're lazy, It's just that we can't give them enough opportunities. In this building, it's easy to forget.
With all due respect, madam, where are you going with this?
Wherever I goddamn like.
And here, when she begins to question Bobby, Bobby can't help but let a little something slip.
Travis's parents, they believed in your dream. They gave up everything to go to Mars, to provide a better life for their only son.
Being Undersecretary, Avasarala is, of course, very good at prying out the information she wants.
Do you believe, after all that hard work, that Travis would jeopardize the lives of his fellow soldiers by foolishly jumping the gun?
No,
No, then why would he open fire without orders? Did he panic?
We thought we were under attack.
Under attack? So you were fired upon?
No, he was trying to kill the enemy. I didn't even know what it was. Nobody did. He wasn't wearing a vac suit.
Sergeant Draper has been through a severe...
Whoa, okay. A vac suit? Okay, a vac suit is a suit necessary for people to survive out in space, right? So here Bobby basically just revealed this alien thing that she wasn't supposed to talk about. This is a big deal. Now, I just want to say that all this does play out a bit differently in the books, but it really ends up being the same thing. Bobby can't help going on as a Martian Marine after this. Her worldview has, it's basically fallen apart, right? So instead, what she decides is to defect from her duties. Oh, I feel sorry for that guy. But now, after a crazy, life-altering decision like this, she suddenly doesn't know, what to do with herself. For some reason, something pops into her head though, and she decides to take a walk. Because, she's always wanted to see the ocean. Like I said before, Earth is largely a jobless place. AI and automation has made most jobs redundant, and the majority of people just don't work. So the future UN created a little something called basic assistance, or just basic. It's a bit like, a dumbed down version of what we might call universal basic services, or UBS, in our world. UBS is the idea that the government gives you what it thinks you need, like public services like housing, food, or healthcare. The key word being basic here. And in our world, this is actually a pretty common thing, especially in social welfare states like Denmark, for example, where, as you might know, I grew up. These people are presumably all on basic. And when Bobby sees this, she can't help but think that the stories that she's grown up with on Mars, about selfish loafers and all that, well, it doesn't really match what's going on here, right? This is grim. It's overpopulated and underemployed, but this is also the reality, not the story. This is the actual lived experience of most people on Earth. And it's also where she meets Nico.
Don't take it personally. The clinic stopped giving Peter his meds 2 months ago. Makes him forget his manners. But I can tell you how to get to the ocean.
I don't have any script.
You're Martian, aren't you?
That obvious?
Well, I've seen a few of you over the years, being how close we are to the UN. But that's not what tipped you. It's the way you're walking. And if you're Martian, you'll have Osteo-X.
Osteo-X is a little blue pill, by the way, that, Martians, they pop to keep their bones healthy.
Give me what you can spare and I'll tell you how to get to the ocean.
You're a drug dealer.
I can trade that and get a month's supply of meds for the kids who've been exposed to radiation from the drive plant. And I can probably get a month's supply of the new chloroquine. It'll save some of us from dying in the summer when we're forced to drink sewer water.
Jesus, is that true?
Wait, hold on a second. If Earthers are getting their basic, why do they need extra meds from someone like Nico? Well, the thing is, not everyone is covered by basic. The kids who weren't approved and registered, who were born, because of overpopulation, they're not entitled to assistance. So it's not quite universal. And on top of that, the basic of the Expanse seems to be a little more bare than the UBS in our world.
Basic services are like, there is a place to live. It may not be in the city you want it to be, but there will be a roof over your head. You will have clothes. They may be made out of paper, but you will have them. There will be enough food for you to stay alive. There will be minimum health care. Nothing heroic, but, more than you would have if you didn't have anything.
So basic really is basic. And it really doesn't seem like something you want to be on.
So you're a doctor?
I put myself on the vocational training list when I was 17 years old. I'm 52 now. Still waiting for my slot.
This is all a bit of a shock to Bobby. I mean, this definitely goes against everything she grew up hearing about, the lazy takers of Earth. The truth is that, well, Earth is just different from Mars. They don't have a terraforming project going on to keep everyone motivated and employed. And as we know from the super rich mega corporations that operate in the show, inequality is rampant too. And so wealth really isn't all that distributed on this future Earth either. So even though they have basic to keep them alive, these people, well, Bobby's literally looking at the reality of it. And she sees that just like Nico wants to be a doctor to help people, but he can't, this really isn't what anyone wants, except for maybe, the rich. Basic seems more like a compromise than proper assistance. And I think this is a really important moment in the show, actually, because it reflects something about the moment in time that we're in our world too, right now. So just before that, I'm sorry to pause for a sec here, but I just want to say that I really love making these videos, but they also take well, such a long time to make, and it's pretty much just me doing it. Well, it is just me. If you're enjoying so far, it really helps me out so much if you give this video a like and, if you subscribe if you want to see more. Okay, that's it. Alright, let's talk about the story of work that we've grown up with. And I definitely do think that we've been told a story about what work is, like, Martians have, just like Bobby has. But I also think that a lot of people don't have this moment that she does of disillusionment, In 1930, the economist John Maynard Keynes predicted that automation would lead to a 15-hour work week by now. But of course it hasn't. We still have the, 40-hour work week that we've had for just about a century. What actually happened is, well, instead of working less, is we just started working bullshit jobs. You might have heard this term before, right? It's from the anthropologist David Graeber. So let's take his definition of what the term means. As he eloquently defines bullshit jobs, they are a form of paid employment that is so completely pointless, unnecessary, or pernicious that even the employee cannot justify its existence, even though, as part of the conditions of employment, the employee feels obliged to pretend that this is not the case. And I'm guessing you probably know exactly what kind of jobs he's referencing to.
If we're going to look at like delivery services, UPS, FedEx, all the, they're always creating greater and greater efficiency among the guys who are actually doing the delivery. Those guys are just lean and mean to death. Whereas the guys who actually sit in the office managing it, you have 7-8 layers of middle managers who are doing basically nothing, just supervising each other.
One of his main arguments in this book is that more than half of the work in our current society is essentially meaningless now. And he also backs this up with data from a lot of surveys. But more importantly, he argues that when people also tie their self-worth to being productive, working these jobs isn't just a waste of time, but it's actually harmful for our mental well-being. And it makes sense, right? And because of the stories that we've been told since we were kids, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, that kind of thing, it's become pretty, normal for us to take and even want these kind of bullshit jobs. For many people, success is to be wealthy, right? And so as we know, a lot of people just end up spending their life in an office and justifying it by thinking it's providing some sort of value to somebody. The important thing is just that the work is being done, right? But actually, right now, we're facing a crucial moment. Just like on the Earth of the Expanse, it's no revelation that AI and automation is getting better and better in our world too. The World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Global Report 2025, that's a mouthful, just revealed that 41% of surveyed companies plan workforce reductions as AI adoption expands. People have AI anxiety right now, and that's a real term, by the way. It describes the attitude towards, about people getting more anxious about the state of the future job market, worried that they can't work. And I mean, layoffs they're already happening too. For example, I already know software engineers who've been laid off because of AI. And I know that even workers who rely on their physical abilities, they also have to worry. Like, take Amazon's warehouses that are being filled with, increasingly robots, right? But here's the thing. Is that actually a bad thing? Do we really need to be, anxious about not working in the future? Well, if we're not provided for, yeah, of course, after all, we still need to put food on the table. But what if we had something that, guaranteed that food and our other needs for that matter? And without the need to work some shitty job that doesn't provide any value, where you're not wasting your life in an office, helping the economy grow for the rich. Like it or not, soon enough we'll need to handle the coming too many people, not enough jobs scenario. The thing that we also see in the Expanse. And unless that means the death of billions of people, or the expansion of bullshit jobs, I guess, it's pretty obvious that we're gonna have to figure out some sort of assistance to keep that many people who used to work full time, well, to keep them alive. And I'm not talking about basic here. Right now, economic disparity between classes is also just growing bigger and bigger. We have extreme wealth inequality in most countries right now, so I think we're really pushing up on that moment pretty soon. In the Expanse, bullshit jobs seem to have come to an end. But at the same time, the thing that's replaced them, basic, which is basically just sustaining people but in poverty, well, it isn't all that ideal either, to say the least. So I don't think we should aim for something like basic, but luckily, there's a better alternative. A lot of things have changed for Bobby in the short time since, well, she arrived on Earth. And she's still taking it in. Quite literally, actually. This is the first time she sees the ocean. And it's awesome in the true sense of that word. And as she stands there, with the vast blue stretching endlessly before her, I imagine that this is what she thinks of. This beautiful ocean isn't just a body of water, it's also a symbol of the unknown and, the exciting possibilities that we might find there. Her whole identity as a Marine, as a Martian Marine, has fallen apart. And that was everything for her, because as she now realizes, it was always the measure of her identity. Working, but as she stands there, seeing through the story of Martian nationalism and the interlaced story of the Earthers, well, the illusion begins to fall apart. And so I imagine she wonders, what do I do now without work, without purpose? The one thing that is clear for her is that she doesn't want to end up like the people she saw on Basic. And it's not like she, didn't like her job anyway. She just realized that she was doing it for the wrong reasons and for the wrong people too. And watching this, I felt like asking the question too, if the story of relentless work doesn't make sense anymore, isn't it possible to think things through, but in a whole new way? One that prizes well-being and meaningful contribution over just like working for the sake of working, or in Bobby's case, for the sake of dividing politics. Well, luckily, for me anyway, I just spoke with someone who's done extensive research on a little something called universal basic income. Author Leah Werner actually recorded the real lived experiences of people who received this income for a whole year. And here she explains why this is something everyone needs to be thinking about right now. Coincidentally, she's also my sister.
So UBI, Universal Basic Income, essentially is an income given to any individual in a given territory or country, regardless of their legal status. And it's an unconditional income, meaning that it's not tied to any work or actions or any kind of activities that the person does.
Specifically, Leah actually looked at how it worked in a province in Canada.
I think all the people I talked to in my research, they all reiterated that they want to work. No one wants to feel like they're doing nothing, But we've very much been indoctrinated by a myth of that people left to their own devices are lazy, they wouldn't do anything, they would just lounge around and leech on society. But no one wants to be a lazy bum leeching on society, Of course, there may be some exceptions, and you know what? Why don't we just let them do that? If it's a few people, who cares? But I think most people want to contribute. It's just that they may not be able to or want to contribute in the way that's been deemed acceptable.
And I think Bobby feels exactly the same way. She still wants to work, which is why she, in the end, accepts the job she's been offered from Avasarala to find the thing that killed her team. She wants to make things right, probably also because she needs meaning in her now empty life. And I think that's probably the biggest misconception about UBI too. that people don't want to work if they're set up like this, because they're lazy. In one of my last videos, I asked this question in the comments. If money came to an end and reputation was our new currency, what would you do with your time? And I got an overwhelming amount of really interesting responses. Invictus1983 said, I continue focusing on what brings me joy and allows me to contribute meaningfully to both individuals and the collective. So helping others help you, kind of thing. Johan V3589 said, no matter synthesizer is gonna raise my kids to be decent humans, so that's what I primarily would do with my time. So care work. And Ao No Mu said, mentor and teach. Develop open source tools, techniques, or systems for decentralized food growing and distribution to try to mitigate the effects of food scarcity and food insecurity. So help fight some of the really pressing issues we have in our society right now. If you all, who commented anyway, and there were so many interesting ones, by the way, if you're any indication of what people might do if they didn't have to worry about putting food on the table, it seems like our innate wanting to make things better, to have meaning in our own lives, it won't stop us from working. The UN, our UN, recognizes human rights to food, housing, education, and water. But in our society, these things all cost money. In most countries, you need an income to, satisfy these rights. So I guess the real question is, why isn't an income a human right too?
But I think also the powers that be may not be interested in implementing a universal basic income because it might slow down production and consumption. That's not something that we want in our current economic growth paradigm. So that may also have to be, questioned.
So if you want to hear the full interview, and it was really good with Liam, I have it up on my Patreon, where she also goes into, how we deal with care work and jobs that probably won't be replaced by AI, but still needs to be done. Joining my Patreon is definitely also the best way to support me and, follow my updates and polls on future videos and stuff like that. Now, I would really love to know what you think about BASIC and UBI, and if we're going to turn into the future Earth that we see in the Expanse. Or are we going to do things better? And if you're interested in what a society might look like, not post-work, but post-scarcity even, check out the video I referenced before where I look at another sci-fi show that reveals exactly that. And hey, thanks for watching till the end.